Hey Physique Freaks, how's it going? Scott Tuzan on MetabolicMasterpiece.com. Today, I would like to discuss a topic that is incredibly important to us physique athletes because we train for aesthetics. And that is, can you change the shape of your muscle through exercise, or is the shape of your muscle solely predetermined by your genetics? And this is a topic that's been popping up quite a bit on social media lately. I've seen it on Facebook, on YouTube, and it's been really interesting to see the divide amongst the two groups. Now, on one side, you got the group of people who say that there's no way you can change the shape of your muscle. That's bro science, man. And I've even seen one of my respected colleagues post a YouTube video standing next to his dad. They're flexing their guns and their arms are very similar in shape. He said, see, look at that. Your arms, the shape of your arms, the peak of your bicep, solely predetermined by genetics. Now, if that's not bro science, I'm not sure what is. Now, the interesting thing is, on the other side of the segment, the group of people who believe that it's possible to change the shape of a muscle through exercise, they're the evidence-based segment. So they have research to back up their claims. Guys like Brad Schoenfeld, Brett Contreras, Dr. Jose Antonio. And following these guys and following the research that they've done, the papers that they've written, it's definitely led to my belief that indeed you can change the shape of your muscle. I'm going to provide some research-based evidence here, as well as some photo evidence how my bicep, the peak, has changed over the years. So let's get right to it. Now, there are certain genetic factors that you can't change. Rick has a deep vertical split running along his bicep that separates the long head and the short head, whereas I have a horizontal split that runs across my bicep. No matter what exercises I perform or how I train, I'll never be able to carve out a split like Rick has, and he'll never be able to get a split like I have. Other genetic factors that you can't change is the origin and insertion of your bicep. Now notice how Rick has a bit of a gap there between his bicep and his elbow, whereas I don't have much of a gap in that area. And the reason being is that my bicep inserts a little lower on my forearm than his does. And that creates a longer muscle belly, and that's going to have a visual impact on the aesthetic appearance of my upper arm. Now we know through EMG and MRI research that certain exercises will place more emphasis on either the long head or the short head of the bicep. The hammer curl here, for example, places more emphasis on the long head of the bicep and the brachialis, so the outer aspect of your bicep. The barbell curl, performed with a wide grip, places greater emphasis on the short head of the bicep, so the inner aspect. The incline dumbbell curl, where you begin in a neutral position and then supinate the wrist so the pinky fingers twist inwards, has been shown to place equal emphasis across both heads of the bicep and the brachialis. Now, I see some guys in the gym who focus solely on the barbell curl and they're always using a wide grip, and it shows in the appearance of their bicep. The short head is proportionally greater than the long head, so the outer aspect of their arm is really lagging behind. Whereas if they started including more hammer curls and incline curls, they could change the shape of their bicep and the aesthetic appearance of their upper arm. Now I want to look at a paper by Jose Antonio that discusses the non-uniform growth of your muscles. And this goes beyond just placing more emphasis on one head of the bicep over the other. Right now, we're going to look at the distribution of muscle fibers. There appears to be a greater percentage of fast twitch muscle fibers located towards the insertion point of your bicep, so more towards the elbow, than in the other areas of your arm. So if you're training in a way that is really targeting the hypertrophy and growth of fast twitch muscle fibers, so you're lifting a bit heavier, you're lifting in the lower to moderate rep range, you're going to experience more growth in that lower aspect of your upper arm. The part of the paper that really excited me was this topic of compartmentalization of skeletal muscle, and it discusses how muscle fibers don't run the entire span of the muscle. So you don't have a bunch of muscle fibers running from the insertion all the way down, the origin all the way down to the insertion. They're compartmentalized, and each compartment is innervated by its own little unit of nerves. And so basically what they're saying is like certain exercises can indeed target certain regions of your arms. And I've really noticed over the past 2 to 3 years the shape of my arm has really changed. That peak at the top half of that split has really grown a lot more than the lower half. And it's probably because I've been including a lot more higher rep, lower weight exercises in my training. It's definitely become very, very pronounced over the past 2 to 3 years. I really like this aspect, this part of the paper where Jose says, in fact, the idea that a muscle would respond in a uniform fashion would seem implausible in light of the fact that there are distinct physiological, anatomical differences within a single muscle. Now, this is a picture when I was 18 and then today. At a close look at my peak there. Look at how close to the shoulder, it gradually slopes down. Whereas today, it peaks right up there. So if this isn't visual evidence that you can change the peak of your bicep, I don't know what else is. It's blown my mind to see the discussions out there and people say you can't change the peak of your bicep through exercise selection when we have this kind of evidence and research, these papers out there that show that your muscles grow in a non-uniform way. The lower aspect doesn't grow at the same rate as the outer aspect. So different portions can grow at different rates depending on how you're training. Now, this doesn't just impact the biceps. So let's look at the traps right now. You got an upper aspect from the neck down to the shoulders, and then the middle aspect that spans across the shoulders, and then the lower aspect coming down towards the middle of your back. Now, pull-ups, where you have your palms facing forward, tend to place more emphasis on the lower aspect of your traps than chin-ups, where your palms are facing you. So if you're always performing pull-ups with your palms facing forward, chances are you're going to develop those traps, the lower aspect of your traps, more so than the upper aspect. Now let's look at the legs. So Brad Schoenfeld, this is his website, Look Great Naked. He recently wrote a paper, did some research comparing the activation of the leg curl and stiff leg deadlifts on the hamstrings. So in this video, you're going to see me doing a Romanian deadlift instead of a stiff leg deadlift. But what they found is that both the lying leg curl and the stiff leg deadlift placed emphasis on the upper aspect of the hamstrings, but the leg curl placed way more emphasis on the lower aspect of the hamstring. So if you're neglecting any kind of leg curl exercise, if you're not adding leg curls into your training, chances are your hamstrings are going to become very developed in the upper aspect, and the lower aspect is going to lag behind. So basically, I mean, this is still, I think this area of research is still in its infancy. We're still learning a lot, and I think it's exciting and fascinating that we're bringing these topics to light and we're discussing them. And I mean, it's stuff that us bros have kind of always, I want to say known, but it's stuff that we've been discussing for a long time. So it's really nice to see that we're gaining more insight through research. And we have guys like Brad Schoenfeld and Brett Contreras who are in the trenches really kind of digging in and showing that a lot of this EMG activation, and this is the one thing, like the activation of the muscle has been shown whatever aspect of a muscle is getting the most activation tends to be the area that has experienced the greatest hypertrophy. The cross-sectional area of that muscle is the biggest where it's most activated. Now let's look at shoulders. That's an area that a lot of us physique athletes love to train. We like to build rounded shoulder caps. So if all you're doing is front raises, you can't tell me that your shape of your shoulders is going to change uniformly. So your shoulder's going to still build nice and round. So you don't have to do rear delt flies or anything like that. Your shoulder, if you just do lateral raises, that's enough for your shoulder. Shoulder presses, your shoulder's always going to remain the same. That's a bunch of nonsense. We hit all these muscles from different angles, not just for the fun of it, and for a variety, because it does have an impact on the shape of a muscle. And last but not least, I'd really like to see some more research done on the mind-muscle connection with advanced trainees, how we can steer that neural drive towards certain aspects and regions of a muscle group. Now, for myself, as an example, my upper thighs, I'm very hip dominant. So leg exercises tend to make my upper thighs grow a lot quicker than the lower aspect of my thighs. But over time, I've really learned how to enhance my mind-muscle connection and create a lot more tension in the lower aspect of my thighs. So here I'm really controlling the movement and creating more tension in the vastus medialis, the teardrop there, and the lower aspect of the vastus lateralis, the quad sweep. And as I've become better at enhancing this mind-muscle connection, I have noticed that the lower aspect of my quadriceps has begun to really catch up to my upper thighs and really added a lot more shape to my quads. It may sound a bit like bro science, but there's definitely something to it, and I'd love to see more research in this area. I hope you've gained some insights into this. I love to hear your thoughts. It's a topic, obviously, that I'm very passionate about, excited about. Have yourself an amazing day.